All right, so today, let's dive into something that might actually change how you think about learning English.
Okay.
It's all about this like hidden power, right? The power of, just listening. We're talking about unlocking fluency, like really being able to speak, and you might be surprised, A lot of people don't realize that listening, it's kind of like a secret weapon.
It's true. Yeah, I think we get so caught up in like textbooks, right? All the grammar rules.
Yeah.
We kind of forget, I think, how we first learned language as kids.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, we learned by listening,
Right, like total immersion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not even, it's not just about picking up like new words, although that's obviously a huge part of it. It's more about like absorbing the music of the language, how it actually sounds,
Right.
in real life.
Music of language. I like that. I've always thought about like language learning as this, I don't know, very like structured thing.
Yeah.
But thinking about it musically, that's really interesting. So how does that actually work?
Okay, so think about this. Have you ever like tried to learn a song, but just by like reading the sheet music?
Right. Yeah.
You might get the notes right, but you're going to miss, the soul, the feeling, the way a really good musician brings those notes to life. Language is kind of the same way when you think about it.
Okay, so instead of memorizing all these words from a page, I need to be like really focusing on how native speakers are like actually using them.
Exactly. It's like noticing how they use their intonation, the rhythm, Even those little pauses, they can totally change the meaning.
Yeah.
And those are not things you could just learn from a textbook. You know what I mean? You have to hear it. You have to feel it.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see like how important that is, how much I've probably missed by just focusing on the written word. But can you really fix your pronunciation just by listening? Because, I feel like I've been saying some words wrong for years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. See, when you really listen closely to native speakers and you try to, mimic them, it's not just about repeating. You're actually training the muscles in your mouth to make those sounds naturally.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's like any other skill. The more you practice, the more, ingrained it becomes.
So it's like building up that muscle memory through repetition and like actually feeling the sounds in your own mouth.
Yeah, you got it. And this is where things get even more interesting because listening, it's not just about the individual sounds, it's intonation too, right? Like the way our voice goes up and down in a sentence, the emphasis we put on certain syllables, it can completely change the meaning, right?
But that's not just about getting the words right, but delivering them with the right kind of like musicality.
Yeah, exactly. It's the difference between someone, just reading a list of words and then someone telling you like a really captivating story.
Right.
And the more you listen to those, I don't know what the word is, like those little nuances.
The subtleties.
Subtleties, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. The more you hear them, the more you kind of internalize them, and then you start using them naturally yourself.
So we're training our ears, right? To like pick up on all these little musical cues that make English sound more natural and more like, authentic. But how do we actually use that? Like, how do we go from just being good listeners to actually speaking that way ourselves?
Well, that's where the real work comes in. But honestly, it doesn't have to feel like work. I think one of the most effective techniques, and it's actually kind of fun, is called, have you heard of shadowing?
Shadowing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've heard of it, but when I picture it, I kind of imagine myself like following some native speaker around and just like trying to catch every word they say.
Yeah, it's not quite that, it's not quite as secretive as all that. Shadowing is basically, it's mimicking, like you're trying to sound like what you're hearing. So you choose some audio, it could be a podcast, maybe an audiobook, even like a TED Talk, something where there's one clear speaker. And you basically just talk along with them. You try to match their pace, their intonation, even like when they pause.
So you're not just saying the words, you're really trying to get like their whole delivery, right? Almost like, an actor getting into character or something.
Yeah, exactly. It might feel a little weird at first, I'll admit that. But the cool thing about shadowing is that it forces you to stop, translating everything in your head. And you start reacting to the sound, the music of it, and your mouth just kind of follows along.
I can see how that would be really helpful. Instead of getting stuck on the grammar, you're just kind of going with the flow, like a jazz musician or something. But are there different ways to shadow? Like, can you just jump in? Or would it be helpful to have like a transcript too?
You're right. There are definitely different approaches you can try. You could definitely start with just, basic shadowing, just you and the audio. But yeah, if you're working with something more complex or just want an extra challenge, having a transcript could be great. There's actually something called script shadowing, where you've got the transcript right there in front of you while you're shadowing. It can help you make that connection between, what you're seeing and what you're hearing even stronger.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
That makes a lot of sense. And I bet hearing different accents while you're doing that could be really valuable too, right?
Absolutely. And that brings up a really important point. Don't limit yourself to just one type of English. Like, the world is full of amazing accents and different ways of speaking. Expose yourself to British English, American English, Australian English, even like regional dialects within those countries. It's incredible.
It's true. It's like, I don't know, training your ear to recognize a song, even if it's being played by a totally different band, right?
Yeah.
You're picking up on those like core elements that make it what it is. Exactly. It makes your ear more adaptable, more flexible. You start picking up on those subtle differences in pronunciation, the rhythm, even slang and those little expressions that are specific to certain places. It all adds up, But it's not just about understanding different accents. It's about recognizing what makes spoken English, how native speakers use their voice, no matter where they're from, to communicate what they mean, how they feel.
It makes me think about those little filler words we all use, proof, or those can be regional too, right? You're totally right. Even those little sounds that you might not even think about, they play a part. They're part of that natural rhythm and flow of, a real conversation.
Yeah.
And they definitely change depending on the accent, even from person to person. Noticing those can really give you a much deeper understanding of how English is actually spoken.
It seems like there's so much to listening that I don't know, I never really considered before. But I have to admit, sometimes I can understand everything perfectly, but then when it's my turn to speak, I just freeze up. It really is like hitting a wall, In my head, I know what I want to say, but then I overthink it and I don't know.
That's like you're trying to, translate everything perfectly instead of just letting it flow out naturally.
Exactly. Is there anything you can do to get past that?
I think almost everyone feels that way, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like stage fright, but for language learners,
Right.
But here's the good news. The more you really focus on, active listening, not just passive listening, the more you're actually getting ready to speak more naturally yourself.
Okay, so it's not just about getting the information, it's about how you're engaging with it, right?
Exactly.
But how do I actually do that, make it more active? It's not like I can just pause a conversation in real life and be like, hold on, let me take some notes.
Well, you probably shouldn't do that.
Probably not.
But, the note-taking idea, that's actually not a bad idea. If you're listening to something specifically to, improve your English, don't be afraid to write things down. Words, phrases, even whole sentences, whatever grabs your attention.
So use flashcards or maybe a vocabulary app on my phone to keep track of new words.
Exactly. And don't just write down the word by itself.
Right.
Try to remember how it was used, the context. Was it a joke? Was it part of some idiom? The more you can connect the word to how it's used in the real world, the better you'll remember it, and the more likely you are to actually use it yourself.
That makes sense. I always tell myself I'll remember, but then...
It just fades away.
Exactly.
But of course, just writing things down, that's not enough, is it? At some point, you have to,
You got to actually open your mouth.
You got to use it. And that's actually where we come full circle, back to the listening.
Oh, right.
Active listening, it doesn't just prepare you in terms of, vocabulary and all that. It prepares you mentally, too.
Yeah.
Well, think about a time when you listened to someone who was just, a really captivating speaker.
Yeah.
They were just, reciting facts and figures, were they?
Right. They were telling stories, making jokes, really trying to connect with everyone listening.
Exactly. And as listeners, we're picking up on all of that without even realizing it.
Well, you are.
We learn how to, tell a story in a way that keeps people interested, how to use humor, how to even just read a room and know how to talk to different people.
That's so true.
And those are all skills that apply to speaking too, not just listening.
So it's like we're learning how to be better communicators just by paying attention to how other people do it.
Exactly. It's like having, a personal language coach with you all the time, showing you different ways to use the language, how to really make it your own.
That's a great way to think about it. It really is.
And I really believe that,
Yeah.
The more you focus on being a good listener, the more natural it'll feel to speak too. And that's true for any language, really.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It is. And, it goes beyond just, learning English or whatever language you're trying to learn.
What do you mean?
Think about it. How much do we learn about, I don't know, about different cultures, different ways of seeing the world just by listening to other people?
That's a good point.
It opens your mind in a way that nothing else can.
But this has been great. Honestly, a real eye-opener.
Good, I'm glad.
I feel like I don't know, I get so stuck on the grammar rules, the vocabulary lists.
Sure.
But you've really, I don't know, shown me how powerful listening can be. It's a whole different way of looking at language learning.
I'm glad to hear that. Just remember, language, at its core, it's about connecting with other people, right? And that connection, it starts with listening.
So true, so true. And for everyone listening out there, I hope this inspires you to, I don't know, not just hear the world around you, but to really listen to it. You might be surprised by what you discover.